have you here. We're going to let everyone wind in, but while everyone's joining, I would love to get a sense of who's here in the audience with us. And so if you could jump into the chat, let us know the company that you're with and where you are joining us from. Would love to know. See a bunch of faces. Hey, Crystal. Hey, Eli, Melissa, Micah, Redika, Summer. Awesome to see you all here. So for today's session, we will be recording this. So if you have any questions, we're going to come back to things. We'll be able to share that out. And then also we'll have a special opportunity at the end that we will be sharing as well. So with that, let's get started on everything. So today I want to talk through with our guest, John, how to make your packaging stand out on shelf. As we
Mhm.
know, right, a lot of you here launching in retail stores, different consumers, different markets, and it is getting crowded out there. It's no longer enough just to have a nicely designed packaging. Your
Right.
packaging needs to grab attention in store and make someone actually want to buy it. So
Right.
today we're going to be going through some specific in-depth examples using your products and brands that you submitted. John's going to be walking through an audit basically of from their perspective what is working well, what can be improved potentially, and then you'll have an opportunity to connect with John after this to go into that in more detail. But want to make it extremely valuable, so we're going to be giving direct feedback right here on the call. So John is with EO Space, and they're a creative branding and design agency, also does packaging, works with a ton of CPG brands, and so excited to have him on today. Welcome, John.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. Have a pretty good presentation. I hope it's as valuable for you as it is for some of the other people and brands that I've gone through this process with. And I'm looking forward to getting started. Hopefully, we have some time for questions at the end.
Awesome. So let's get into it.
Okay, let me see here. Make sure everything is good on my end, technically. All right. Well, again, thank you, Jordan, and as well as the Food Bevy team for allowing us to, my team and I, to jump in this call. Like Jordan said, I'm the founder of EO Space. Today we're going to be talking about packaging, but not so much from the perspective of aesthetics, but from the perspective of shopper behavior. We've worked with a lot of founders before, and a lot of founders and growth stage brands, and a lot of people interpret packaging as more of a design exercise. But the truth is that it's more so than maybe any of our brand assets, it is a communication exercise. And so, and in many ways, it is kind of our first salesperson. And so the reality is that most brands, it's not that they have a bad product. It's just that some consumers never fully engage with their product correctly. And packaging is one of those assets where we kind of have to ask really hard questions about how our brand is really competing and if we're being honest, if that conversation is present at the package level. And so, just a quick flyover about us. We're a strategic branding and packaging partner. We're focused almost exclusively on food and beverage brands. We've done a lot of different CPG work. We've supported several different retail engagements, experience spans across some of the largest retailers, including Walmart, Costco, Amazon. The projects you see there on the right are different brands that we've touched and packages that we've designed. Um, and a lot of the time when we're approaching packaging, we're thinking about it from a positioning perspective. It's typically a surgical process coming down to messaging, architecture, understanding. The truth is that some of the best brands that win, maybe they're not always the sexiest, or maybe they are, but what they really do great is communication. And so, what I'd love to do is just go ahead and get started and then jump into our kind of our framework for how we approach this. So this might be the most important slide in the presentation. If there's anything that you remember, I hope that I hope you remember this. And so when shopping, people ultimately decide twice. The first decision is, do I notice it? And the second decision is, do I choose it? And so a lot of the time when we're approaching our packaging, we're thinking about it just from one decision. We're thinking like, oh, I like this. This looks good. But The real question is how are we standing out? How are we getting attention? And how are we communicating the unique value of the product? But once we get the attention, what we need to do is we need to then create the sale. And so a shopper can ultimately notice your product and still leave without purchasing it. And that's because these are fundamentally different moments. And so the first moment's about visibility, and the second moment is about confidence. And we look at some of the best brands in the market currently, what we would call, me and my team, we've looked at insurgents, as we call them. These are typically challenger brands. These are brands that are taking share from the large competitors. They understand modern shopping very effectively, and they're generating maybe 25 million annually plus, growing 10 times faster than their category average. And they typically will sustain some level of positive growth, maybe post-acquisition. Um, and so these are the insurgents, and we kind of use these as the case studies for how we approach our work. And some of the things that they do really well is first, they make their product instantly understandable. I mean, when you see it, you understand where it belongs, you understand the product identification. Second, they create a clear reason to want it. You don't have to search and browse through their package to understand it. It's very evident what this brand is competing on. Um, and another thing that they do extremely well is they leverage category cues very well. So they'll they'll be in the aisle in a way that allows them to show you that they're that product, but they leverage heuristics and the visual symbols in a way that allows them to stand out as well. And so they just leverage category cues, the things that we're taught to understand a category. They leverage those things very well. Fourth, they build systems that can support growth across multiple SKUs. So now we're seeing a kind of a transition from legacy models to something more that's a much more modular. I mean, you're looking at colors, fonts, logo systems that can be very expansive, and they can essentially support a wide variety of SKUs, sort of breaking the rules that some of the legacy brands, the way they behave, more of a static brand guy. We're seeing something that's a lot more dynamic. And then fifth, they design against the real competition. So they're looking at how their competitors are approaching the shelf, and they're trying to manipulate that, and they're trying to essentially one up them in very clever ways. And the thing that's not on here is that they treat creative and packaging as a source of competitive advantage. And so I would definitely take that to heart because right now, as we probably all know, even with private label, the aisle is extremely competitive. And especially retailers, they're trying to curate the perfect shelf. And so they're looking at your packaging. Sometimes we're involved in these buyer discussions, and they're taking packaging into consideration when it comes to if they feel confident that it could perform in the store. And so um, by doing these types of things, looking at the way these brands are behaving, we're able to create a product that is, able to encourage trial, but also land the sale. And so let's go to the next slide. This is Graza. I love using Graza as an example because olive oil was a category that didn't really feel disrupted in a meaningful way for quite some time. Most olive oils, you think about it, you think traditional vibes, you think talks about quality, talks about heritage. But Graza does a really great job of just genuinely reducing shopper effort. It creates immediate visibility, creates immediate understanding, and it helps people understand exactly how to use the product. They're kind of disrupting it just based on the form factor of it. You kind of squeeze and drizzle, and so that's just one element. But they also help the buyer understand how to move through that product. And so visibility alone is not where the packaging ends. And we really need to find ways to guide shoppers through the entire experience. And so this is just one example that I love to look at. When we have personally rated Graza, we consider it just like an A plus case study for how to approach packaging and help people really move through that conversation. So as we kind of get closer to doing the actual audits, again, we're trying to optimize for these two decisions. So when we're thinking about front of pack slash side and back of pack, what we're trying to understand is can the shoppers identify the product quickly? Is the reason to buy immediately clear? And is the balance between brand and product working? Does the package create desire? Sometimes products are a little bit more appetizing forward. Maybe there's food photography, etc. And some of the more surgical packaging designs that we've done really just sometimes will only touch the media in an attempt to make it appear satiable and appetizing. Um, does it earn that attention within the category? And then whenever it comes down to some of the side of pack information, how are we reinforcing the value proposition here? So some of the things that are communicated on the front end, how are we encouraging that conversation once they've picked it up? and helping them understand maybe we're trying to do a better for you product and it's different from traditional food and beverage or different from traditional products in that particular aisle. How are we guiding people through that understanding? And so you'd be surprised how many different packages we'll see, and they're great products, and they'll really have like a great story on the back. But it's just a lot of text and it's a lot of information. And the reason that the element that it's really competing on is lost on the back of pack when somebody's bought it and now they're trying to make sense of the product. And so it's important to think how we're moving through this conversation. How are we capturing attention, and how are we supporting the conversion through that value reinforcement in a way that can be done in 5 seconds? And so, like I said, a lot of people approach packaging from a design perspective, which is very important. Clearly, all the best brands and fast-growing brands are doing that, but we really need to approach it from a communication perspective first. And so, in this conversation, I want to run through a couple packaging audits. Typically, if we're going to do a packaging audit for your brand, it can be much more expansive. Well, we might have a whole deck where we're having multiple insights and we're walking through the process together because maybe you want to reposition the brand in a certain way, and that will govern the packaging decisions. But what I wanted to do is just give you a flyover for how we might approach it for a specific brand. So
And just for a
let's,
little context too, and thanks for everyone who submitted your products and brands. What we did is select two of them to walk through in a little bit more detail, but then
yep,
John also created a kind of quick look at everyone else who submitted as well. And
that's
so
right.
if no matter yours has the deep dive or not, if you want a more specific kind of deep dive into your brand, then John is offering everyone on the call a chance to do that and do like a full audit for your brand after this as well. You just schedule a call, I'll provide the link for that.
That's right. Thank you. And so did choose two. Part of it was kind of random, but also I wanted to provide a look at two different types of products, but also in order to do this, you have to have a full look at the package. And so some of the brands I kind of struggled to find a full look at the package. So these two products, I was able to find that. And I also enjoyed evaluating the packages as well. But if you stay till the end, I will provide a quick recommendation based on what I looked at for each of the attendees. I looked at their packaging, especially their front of pack. And I provide if I was to make an immediate change to the package, maybe how I would approach it. So I provide just one tip per brand if you're not one of the two included here. So I'll do that at the very end. And then maybe we can expand on that a little further in the Q&A or whatever. But okay, let's put this framework into practice. So the first example, like Jordan said, is Grace's Best. This is a better for you cookie. They produce sunflower seed and rolled oat cookies. They're positioned as a healthy alternative to traditional cookies. Today, the SKU at hand is the sunflower seed and rolled oat cookie SKU. The brand currently appears in natural and specialty grocery environments, and I believe in the North Texas area, which I am in North Texas. Most of my team is from North Texas, the Dallas area. And so saw that and was like, okay, gotta talk about that. Before we critique anything, let's just uh, let's acknowledge what's working. And for to be clear, all these are just potential opportunities. It's not meant to be, uh, you know, feel like we're, trying to condemn the package for specific things. We're always trying to improve these things. And so anything I say is just meant to be, as helpful and advisories as possible. So this package at first glance, as you can see it here, feels approachable, feels natural. It's a cookie company because you see the cookies, and you can feel it's distinct from conventional cookies, and you see kind of an immediate shelf character with the sunflower. So there's some strong brand equity here. In fact, more so than a lot of brands I've seen at this stage. There's a really prominent brand equity here, brand character that's showing from the shelf. And if I was walking down the better for you snack aisle or if I was on cookies, I would most likely notice this shelf. Or I'm sorry, notice this package. And so, but again, remembering the framework, we're not trying to redesign packaging. This is a nice design, has good hygiene, as we would call it. The goal is to improve its ability to win in these two shopper decisions. And so let's think about how we can make it easier to understand and more compelling to choose. Starting with the front pack, I kind of always start with the same question. I think if I saw this product for the first time, would I understand what it is? And again, when we're the founder, when we're launching the brand, even when my team is looking at a product for a long time, we become very accustomed and we find that the product is easy to understand. But especially when we're bending worlds, better for you products. Sometimes there's new form and factors to the product and they're very innovative. We really need to help people move through that learning process instantaneously because they're looking at 20 potential products on shelf. And so um, this is oftentimes where the largest opportunity exists. And we just did it even for a Walmart brand where it was a ready for you product, and we're still working, even as a Walmart brand, still working on how to improve the ready for you communication element within the package. And so this is often where the largest opportunity exists, that product identification level. So currently the product descriptor, as you see that it says sunflower rolled oats cookies. Currently, the product descriptor is functioning more like supporting information here. At first glance, I should be able to navigate to the center of the package and within, and just at a glance, know exactly what type of product this is. Something like sunflower cookies or some sort of cookie description, a product level brand that helps me understand this is a healthier approach to the product. Right now, we're looking at a really strong brand identity, but as far as the product level identity, we feel like there's kind of a layer missing, and so it's creating kind of it's flattening the SKU level information with all the other supporting information, and kind of making you wonder: is this a flavor, or or is this their product brand, and this they have multiple flavors? And so I'm still, as we're looking at this, trying to determine what kind of cookies, why sunflower? Is this just a flavor that they thought was interesting? Is this a specialty product? And what makes us different? And so, you know, this might feel intuitive where you're like, well, we need to just define sunflower cookies. Yes, and product identification is one of the biggest things that we often solve for when we're doing packaging design. If consumers need to think too hard, we've already created friction. And here there's just a little more friction than preferred when we're trying to identify what type of cookie this is. The second thing is really cognitive load. We're seeing a lot of supporting text, sales text that talks about this is an awesome experience, amazing taste, etc. But we really need to reserve this space for key information on what the value adds are, things that legitimately move the needle in the purchase process. So maybe the product is healthier, or maybe the sunflower cookies are, maybe it's sourced from a certain place, or anything that we can correlate to consumers stating this would make me want to purchase the product more. We want to use this space for that type of information. And so, amazing, find out what amazing tastes like, naturally delicious, product description, brand name. There's kind of a sense of flattening happening here. And so the third opportunity, naturally piggybacking off of that, is just the breathing room. Most of the communication is concentrated in the center portion of the package. But there's really some opportunity here to redistribute some of that information and allow the more important elements to create space and to do the work. Like I said, it already has strong shelf presentation, I believe, and it doesn't necessarily need more information. It just would benefit from less competition between these messages. And so, um, immediately when we're looking at this front of pack, we should be able to, within a couple seconds, understand that it is a sunflower cookie and it is appetizing, and there are immediate health benefits that you can get from this, whether it's the calories. I'm not too familiar specifically on what the sunflower cookies do. If I was to sit down with the founder or the brand owner, we would talk a little bit more about why sunflower cookies are a distinct product, and we would probably try to imagine how we can communicate that on the front of pack. Is it really just a caloric deficit against traditional cookies, or are there certain other benefits? Maybe they're fibrous. Maybe there's a certain amount of protein, etc. Maybe they're uniquely great for on the go. Anything that we can attach to that product. And so this would be kind of how we would look at the front of pack. We want to streamline product identification and anything that moves the needle in encouraging the purchase. We want to communicate it very quickly, use the pack space to our advantage, and remove copy that is not supporting that process. So going into the back of pack, um, let's let's assume the package does its job. Apart from the things I said, which again are just supporting thing. I mean, these brands aren't stores; they're having success. So package alone isn't going to mean that they're not going to get in stores and have customers buying. But these are things that we could be potentially losing trial, and we could be potentially losing the customer. And so we want to mitigate that risk as much as possible. But let's assume in this instance the package has succeeded and a customer picking it up. And now we're on to decision number two. Let's decide, will I choose it? Will I put it into the cart? That's where the back panel becomes really the most important part to drive the conversion home. It's like the CTA of sorts, but I don't quite like to think about that because then we just might think of QR codes. And I actually personally believe QR codes on the back of packages I don't know. I do this for a living and I've actually never even used a QR code on the back of a package. So, but everybody's different. So when somebody picks up the package, they're looking for this validation. They're looking for some level of confidence. They're saying like, okay, this is interesting. Let me, let me look a little bit further. Why should I buy it? And so when we're thinking about this particular product, it is a naturally delicious product with wholesome ingredients. This is prime real estate to talk a little bit more about that. What does that mean? I want to know quickly, like, why I really shouldn't be buying traditional cookies. Why I should feel like I'm out of the loop, where I'm now looking at the back of pack and now we're saying, like, let's talk about sunflower cookies and what makes them special and our unique approach to it. And, you know, the truth is not every brand can even compete in terms of ingredients. Sometimes they're really just sometimes it's more of an incremental innovation. Maybe they have a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, but they're mostly competing on brand and maybe some element of form factor, in which case here would be an opportunity to maybe even communicate how somebody might use it. Is it ideal for on the go? Does it dunk really well in milk? Are there certain things that I can do with the product that I didn't consider before? And so there's a lot of opportunity here to reinforce value because people are picked it up. They want to move on from this aisle. Let me tell you, they want to find their product and put it in their cart and keep it moving. Okay. And so our backup panel should just make that very easy for them. Opportunities include why is it the claim we're making here, such as um, amazing and very healthy, different from a traditional cookie, better for you. Why? And how can we use it? And so wanting to discuss those natural qualities more, and just help people understand why is this better and why should I trust it. And we see a lot of packages, especially at the smaller stage, they incorporate a lot of story. It's great. We just have to be efficient about it. We're marketed to every day, just like our customers are, and we are probably guilty of it too, that we don't read all the founder stories of the products that we buy. We just don't. Um, and maybe sometimes we do because we have an interest in this thing, but the average consumer is wanting something to make it easy for them. And so, if there's anything I want you to walk away from thinking about this conversation, it's not about the design; it's about limiting shopper effort every time. And so, a young kid or a teenager, somebody should be able to look at the product and be like, "I get it." And so, these are just, I would love to, let's go to the next slide. These are the biggest opportunities. There's a lot of ways we can approach this. If we're really getting surgical, maybe we even make the media a little bit bigger because I talked about creating some space. Whenever we did the work for Conagra Brands, which owns Duncan Hines, Slim Jims, Marie Callender's, a lot of that packaging effort was very surgical. You might even look at the before and after and think like, do I quite see the difference? Sometimes it just comes down to making things bigger. And the truth is that media and photography sometimes just needs to be better lit and look bigger because people want to pay for something that is abundant and tasty looking. But if we were going to make some quick changes on this pack, I would say on the front of pack, the biggest opportunity, just make the product easier to understand and easier to choose. So, um, sunflower cookies, very evident, and maybe adjust the badge system to just talk really quickly about what are some of the benefits of the sunflower cookies.
One thing,
Calorie.
John, too, about that, like I was actually confused because I was looking up, it's like sunflower seeds and rolled oat cookies, and I was wondering if they were gluten free, right? If they actually use regular flour as well. They do, so it's not gluten free.
Mhm.
But they spend a lot of time talking about the other stuff on top. But as you mentioned, it's not a standard type of cookie that people are familiar with, and so
Mhm.
there's that extra mental load of wondering, like, okay, is this an
Right.
option because, like you said, are they just flavor? Is it because it's gluten
Right.
free? It's not. So, like, what are the other benefits, or like, how do you convince me to buy this? I think calories is one thing, of like maybe it makes it lower calorie, but it creates a lot of questions.
Right. Exactly. We remember our goal is to take a little bit of market share from the traditional cookies. I mean, if they're buying these, they might not be buying Oreos, for example. I will say though that that's not always the case. For example, if you look at plant-based meat, if you look at the actual basket, people are buying traditional meat as well as plant-based meat. So it's not always a direct substitute to the product. But in this case, I would imagine that if somebody is looking for a better for you snack, they're they're trying to snack healthier. But and in this case, what Jordan is saying is that we can't assume that these people are knowledge experts. I am actively trying to eat healthier, and I'm not a knowledge expert. And I would love if the product helped me understand a little bit more what is going on here. If we're only selling to the people who are on the in group, then we're missing opportunity because people are actively wondering about this thing. They're just not as far along in the sales process and the discovery process as maybe a flexitarian. And so, with that said, I hope this was valuable for as far as the first packaging audit goes. And we're going to go ahead and move into our second audit. This one is kind of the opposite challenge in a way. I kind of chose it deliberately for that reason. It's just a different focus. So this is bowl cut,
And
and
Crystal's the founder of Bowl Cut. She's on the call as well, listening.
oh hey Crystal. Well, I'm glad that you're here. Your sauce looks very tasty. I would love to try it one day. And but I hope you find this valuable. I hope it doesn't feel like just uh, cracking down on. I always say that disclaimer anytime I do audits because the truth is these are oftentimes our babies. We've been working. Sometimes the teams we work with are 2 to 3 iterations in, and but it's ultimately just growing pains. And so,
Thank you.
um,
No,
yeah,
I won't take offense to anything.
okay.
So please
Um,
be as candid as you'd like.
Okay. And again, like I said before, any formal audit, we typically will dive into a lot deeper. I just imagine that if we did the full thing for any, people here whose brand it wasn't, they'd be like, this is maybe isn't for me. But anyway, so hopefully it's valuable just as a flyover. So Bowl Cut so today we're looking at their spicy lemongrass stir fry sauce. The positioning is restaurant inspired flavor sauces, Asian American sauces, um, with reduced sodium, reduced sugar. So better for you, Asian American style sauces. And this is one of their newer SKUs, the spicy lemongrass. Um, the brand is currently direct to consumer, selling on Amazon. I believe selling in some emerging natural and specialty retail.
Yeah, we're in Whole
Um,
Foods and
okay,
Target, Fresh Market, Central
wonderful.
Market.
Okay. So that's kind of a flyover of the brand. Before we talk about opportunities for improvement, some of the things that are working based on what we're seeing, product function is clear. I understand that it is stir fry sauce. I understand there's a wellness positioning. The bottle structure is clean. Um, we call it hygienic. So, you got clean transition from brand to product to supporting information. Sometimes we see a lot of packages where this is just kind of everywhere, but this is clean packaging hygiene. In other words, if I pick this up, I know what's going on, and that's a win. And so, how do we make the package even more of a winner? And how do we be a little bit more surgical about our better for you positioning? And I'm sure these are some of the questions that you're asking, Crystal, as you're kind of growing, and or at least hopefully. So let's just go ahead and jump into the front pack. So the first thing that jumped out to me is something that we are seeing actively in better for you products, and that is the relationship between flavor and wellness. Historically, better for you products are almost always led with brand. I'm sorry, with health. So they want to dedicate their brand, their platform to a healthy message. But consumers today increasingly expect products to just be healthier. Now they just want their products to be intentionally made. And so there is some downward pressure happening on better for you products where some of the claims that they're making about their product, consumers are thinking like, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to go down that path with you, but I still want it to be a wonderful experience for me. And sometimes they associate better for you as almost like my dad used to say, like, why would I ever eat a diet cookie? Like, why would I ever eat a low fat cookie and drink a diet Coke? I'm just going to do the thing if I'm going to do the thing, right? And so they still want it to be uh, a flavorful experience. And so because they still want this indulgent, when we're thinking about a brand that is better for you, we always want to lead with flavor, then validate with benefits. Right now, the packaging emphasizes dietary attributes kind of as the anchor for the product before fully establishing the flavor experience that shoppers are ultimately purchasing. Um, I mean, for example, my partner, my business partner, him and his household, they love sauces. They'll try pretty much everything, but they don't say like when they don't go down the sauce aisle thinking like I'm looking for something that has reduced sodium or is plant-based. They want to make a great meal, and if it's healthy as well, that is wonderful to them. Now, unless we're trying to appeal exclusively to flexitarians or exclusively to people with these dietary attributes, we understand that. But most of the time, when we're talking to these products that are doing better for you, they are noticing that these markets are retracting a little bit. Some of the hype cycle behind plant-based products is restricting, and so now they're thinking like, how can we make our product a little bit more accessible? For example, one well, actually, so the flavor is often the motivation, and that is a very important distinction. And so, piggybacking off of that, that second opportunity we see here is the audience expansion. If somebody does identify as plant-based or gluten-free, then yes, these claims are highly relevant. But if somebody, like I said, just wants a delicious stir-fry sauce, the current hierarchy does signal to them that the product is primarily for a wellness-focused audience. And the challenge is I have not tried this product. If it is a delicious product and it's healthier, I think the whole world should know about it. I would want to know about it, and I would want to be invited into that. However, if I picked it up, I'd be like, oh, I personally don't live gluten-free and plant-based, so I would actually think that this product is not for me. Um, and so the challenge is just about broadening that addressable audience without losing our core. And this is why I chose this package against the previous one, like Grace's Cookies, because this is where we have to be really sensitive and surgical to the positioning efforts while also maximizing potential trial. And so the third opportunity that we also notice here is how can we strengthen Bolka as a primary brand asset? So we see a very interesting icon. We see product information, but the way that it's organized right now is the bowl cut name itself is actually not accumulating as much equity as it possibly could because it is sequestered to the bottom half alongside the product information. It actually reads more so like a just an additional piece of information that you might just then look for the remaining product information. Bowl cut has visual cues associated with it. Bowl cut. I really think that there's opportunity to um, try to create more of a distinct visual world around the brand bowl cut to reinforce brand equity. A lot of brands today, we've walked brands through the naming process. It's very challenging. And when we can land on a name that has specific subjects attached to it, bowl and cut, it is a winner. And we want to take that all the way. And so how can we create more equity around bowl cut so that it doesn't just feel like additional product level information? And we can maybe nest it in with the icon and give it that same level of strength. And so, um, yeah, this we feel like there's just a really big opportunity to reinforce brand equity here with some hierarchy adjustments as well as maybe some design treatment to the logo. An additional insight is at the top we see for a new generation of thoughtful eaters. We're actually currently doing a sauce company that is based. We're redesigning the label. It's based in the Northwest. And if I was to ask them, do you believe that your sauce is for a new generation of thoughtful eaters? He would probably say, I do believe that. And if we asked all the sauce companies, they would probably identify with that claim. And so what we need to do here is that what that means is that it's non-differentiating to the customer. The front of pack needs to be dedicated to elements that are going to move the needle towards purchase. And as a consumer of sauces, communicating directly to them as a new generation of thoughtful eaters they do not identify in this way. What would be potentially great is restaurant grade with better for you elements. And this is just copy off the whim. The point is that how can we just help make very clear that this is a delicious product coupled with the better for you elements of it? And how can we reinforce that on the front of pack so that people say, oh, I want to acquire this product because I want restaurant grade and it's better for you. That's wonderful. And so I do understand the intention of that copy, but feels more like ad copy. I'm always just asking, how does this statement influence purchase behavior? And packaging space is just extremely valuable. And so I
Yeah,
would
I think
challenge
this
that
is
space to just work a little harder.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. It was interesting when you were talking about the like reduced sodium and sugar call out. And Chris, I'm not sure if, how you're thinking about it exactly, but like that's something that I do look for in sauces. But I think at the same time, we think about who the packaging you want to attract, which is I'm sure you're like trying to attract people like that. But then it also made me realize, as John was thinking, it also might repel some people who might see it as a like quote diet product or something that's different, even though the like full flavor is there. And so it's
Hmm.
always interesting, and it'll be curious to get some feedback from people around how they see that claim and the level of people you're bringing in, including for that being from the pack versus the level of people you might exclude because of it unknowingly.
That's the health claims or the value proposition of reduced sodium and sugar. That debate has always been top of mind since day one, since launch, because we agree and believe that you have to be led by flavor first. Flavor above anything else has to work. It has to be delicious. And I think in our initial launch of products, we leaned into flavor and brand first and felt like our kind of value proposition was getting lost. And so wanted to bring that to the forefront. But then to your point, it still continues to be this big debate of, are we being mass appealing enough? And or are we kind of alienating certain segments? And does the idea of reduced sodium or reduced sugar um, kind of turn people off, right? Because there's expectations of what that means in terms of flavor. So there's, yes, been a lot of discussion and
I can imagine.
debate around this. And then to add another layer of complexity, it's an ethnic product. So then there's another layer of education involved. And how do you communicate that the most efficient way and reduce all the friction? And yes, there's a lot of things around packaging that's been challenging.
No, I totally understand. You know, uh, I could see some quick wins here. I could see there's opportunity maybe just for some color blocking. If we look at some of the insurgents that we talked about earlier, the way they leverage color is extremely important. They use it as a vehicle for some of these things, like something that feels appetizing and eye-catching, and it's kind of satiating. And so maybe there's just some opportunity for us to incorporate, just some level of color blocking, and then maybe just a strong claim that's just as like restaurant grade. Maybe we focus more on the reduced sodium because that feels like the best catch-all, and then we on the back of pack, which we're about to talk about, we can talk a little bit further about some of those other arguments. And so let's go ahead and talk about the back of pack. So um, just uh, the number one thing here is information density. Even brand owners, I'm sure we could all admit, we do shop down the aisle just like everybody else. We're moving fast. We're thinking about lots of things. We want to be able to accommodate people in this process of discovery. And there's on this current pack, there's just a lot being communicated. It's not necessarily bad information. The challenge is just how do we prioritize it because consumers just don't consume packaging the way we might. Um, and so hierarchy becomes incredibly important. And if we think back on that Graz example, what they do is they catch your attention with the form factor of it. And then they talk very quickly about, how the product is made and how you can use it. And so some of the things that stand out to us as opportunities is uh, reducing cognitive load and trying to have some level of usage communication. So the sauce label that I mentioned based in the Northwest, I mean, we're devoting about 75% of the time there to just focusing on the side panel. And here we want to just communicate how the seasoning sauces can be used in all types of ways. Because as these at trade shows, the first thing they say is like, when do I use this and how? What types of products and at what point in the culinary process do I actually begin to use this? And so when it comes to sauces, people want to understand that. And so I would make that extremely evident, because that's probably one of the main things that they're thinking as they pick up this product. Even if it feels obvious, I'm honestly not a sauce expert. I still need it kind of like spoon fed to me, like, okay, this is how I use this product very clearly. And so, opportunity here to communicate that usage information. Um, the third recommendation is, like I said, reinforcing our brand promise. We're talking about restaurant inspired flavor. We're talking about better ingredients. I just can imagine some sort of visual brand diagram that really breaks down how it's restaurant grade and how it's better for you in a way that feels really powerful, really affirming, and also really brand sensitive. I mean, we're talking about a Asian American style sauce as well as Asian American style brand. There's so many visual associations that can be brought into this world. Like you said, this is a cultural product, and so we see a lot of opportunity to potentially make this discussion around the brand's value proposition something that is exciting, brand first, and really digestible. And so, as we look to, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Um, and so the biggest opportunities, if we had to summarize, um, I would focus make flavor experience more compelling along in the front. Not more compelling than the dietary attributes, just make it the frame for how those dietary attributes are understood. Lead with restaurant quality flavor, and then let that purchase let the value proposition of the better for you be more of an anchor, a value add. Because if it's delicious and it's healthy too, I mean that is just a win-win, and that's really the area where we're all competing in. I mean, a lot of products are better for you claimed, but they don't taste that good, and they're strange. And so, um, some of the wins we talked about, but on the back of pack, I would just focus on trying to turn this story of usage and benefits into a clear story, and making it a very clear architecture for people to understand in a narrow window of time, 5 to 10 seconds. They can read it and be like, "Oh, I see why I should go with this product. It looks very tasty, lower sodium. I got it." And then we can devote maybe a element of the founder story to another portion, or just make it its own dedicated section. And again, all doing all of this in a brand sensitive way. There's so much opportunity here because we're talking about a cultural brand. We can lean into that. I can see patterns, and we can see custom illustration, custom iconography, and so would love to, just see maybe some of that brand world express more on the packaging to make that information process more efficient. And so, with that said, that kind of wraps up our two live audits. If you didn't see your brand audited today, don't worry. We're going to talk a little bit about each brand that came up in the webinar. These are our rapid reviews. They are intentionally brief. Um, these are just things that the first thing I would, if I was the brand owner and I was looking over a graphic designer's shoulder, this is the first thing that I'd be like, hey, we got to solve this problem. There might be a variety of different things, but again, this isn't a full audit. It's just to the highest leverage opportunity. So the first one, top left, Saltivate electrolyte product, biggest opportunity I see, translating ingredients into customer facing benefit. Right now, I see numbers, I see quantities, I see information. I do not buy electrolytes. I am actively interested in my hydration. So I buy hydration, I buy recovery, I buy performance, I buy energy. We can keep that information there. We just need to make it very clear to the customer what this is. Let's say we need this much magnesium. I actually have no idea how much we need per day, and I take it each day. And so it's this information escapes me. We can't assume that people are knowledge experts on these things. So just communicate the actual value driver that they buy, which is, like I said, the hydration, recovery, etc. Just bring that forward. All Wello, biggest opportunity here is really hierarchy. So there are great looking product. I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I would, I'd see this as a product for my children. I feel comfortable buying. I mean, we're seeing a lot of benefits: organic, cold pressed, no added sugar, fruit and veggies, all great things, but they're all kind of competing and they're all flat. And so, what is the single strongest reason to buy and organize everything around? Again, we're trying to catch their eye. If we had 30 minutes to sit down and talk with them, I'm sure we can convince them why this is a great brand for our children to consume. But we need to get their attention first and then build the conversation around that. So I would focus on how we can clean up that hierarchy there. Brand called Ozzioli's. Biggest opportunity here is reinforcing premium Italian heritage. So we're looking at a brand that has a lot of authenticity, family made. We need to establish a clean architecture to the label. Nothing crazy, just logo, flavor type, and why it's authentic and tasty. So just keeping to that logic, just as a standard best practice, and then maybe touch up the design so it leans into that premium heritage Italian. Because a lot of these cookies people understand are Italian cookies, and for example, those lemon cookies, I would kill those. I'm Italian. But if we just lean into that premium Italian heritage a little bit more, then it can give off those quality cues that we associate with that family-owned Italian vibe. And so just a little bit stylization there as well as some cleanup. Boy chick bagels. So here, the biggest thing is visibility challenges. I mean, we're looking at a product that is trusted in New York. Most people who are buying it are probably going to buy it because they know it and they trust it in New York. But I would strengthen information visibility. For example, right now, if I look at it within 3 seconds, all I really know is that it's boy chick and that it is a sesame bagel as a flavor. Is that all we are? I mean, are we trying to communicate some other things? Is it homemade? Are there certain ingredients? Those things will be lost on this package because it's translucent. No biggie, translucent packages are cool. We just need to make sure that the right information is evident to people who are not in the loop on boy chick bagels, which I was not before. And so I might not try this product because I see it as just a standard bagel. And so next company, Super Sauced. Interesting product, interesting format. We're looking at a product that essentially is a like a sauce that comes in a cube, and I guess you apply it to your meal and it kind of melts. I've never used anything like that. I don't know how many things out there are like that, but it is a unique format. If we're doing anything format related, education is critical. So the package should communicate what the frozen cube concept is somehow. Right now, the front of pack, it is kind of just communicating like flavor, very delicious, etc. But from my perspective, I'm seeing four different foods there. I'm like, what is this? How do I use this? Um, I would also maybe tighten up some of that imagery. I don't know if you made it with AI, but it looks a little bit like if we're going to go to colors that are like uh, chimichurri green and then like this purple, if we're using AI to generate those images, then it could appear a little artificial. So probably going to need to get some updated media that shows, you know, the cube on melting on the chicken, etc. Or it could look, just a little bit AI generated. Um, and so, organic pantry, biggest opportunity here is information hierarchy. Right now, we're looking at a typography system that is flat across the reading experience. We just need to help consumers understand the product, and they're accustomed to a structured font experience to just break down information. So let's commit to a font that has a unique font for the product, a unique font for the ingredients, and a unique font treatment for the benefits. And we can significantly increase the understanding of our product. And so these are just some rapid reviews. We got a couple more on the next slide. Let's jump into them. All right, Burlap and Barrel. Uh, this is a brand that is successful, already owns premium credibility. To me, the opportunity here is communicating that value a little more distinctly. So I understand that there's a variety of different spices with a unique origin storytelling, like cinnamon from this type of country, all types of spices from different countries. I really think that there's an opportunity to reinforce that through a visual system that communicates where it is in like what particular country, and then using that as a potential banner so that if you're blocking on the shelf and you have 10 to 20 spices on the shelf, it can look like a very distinct cultural experience across all of these different flavors, and people can understand that. But right now, it's mostly just like a kind of a simple brand pattern and then a description of where it's sourced from or inspired by. I really think that we can lean into that a lot more. I saw some of the different products and SKUs that are available on the website. I would encourage those patterns that you're currently using to lean a little bit more into the not so much the ingredients they might use them on, but the actual culture that they're being pulled from. Windmere, um, I would just make sure that right now you're using the icon as a centerpiece for the package. There is a lot of information that needs to be communicated when we're talking about essential oils. The icon is not communicating that information. So we need to be shifting our front of label to ingredients, sensory experience, things that people want to look for when they're buying essential oils, and then shift the brand elements like the icon and the brand name to somewhere in the top left, and just dedicating more real estate to what the product is. A company called Asta Daily, which is a Canadian company. I know that because I saw that they were French and English. It was French and English on the pack. On one of their packs, I thought, oh, are they from Canada? Because we did a lot of Conagra Brands work for their French and Canadian markets, and you have to have bilingual packaging, and it is tough. I mean, you're already struggling for space, and now you have to incorporate two languages, and so it's really tough. But on this particular product, the first thing I would focus on is product identification. I didn't know what product it was. I had to look for it, and then I saw it was like I think it was antihistamine and something. It was in the bottom. So just bring that product identification up. Um, Anything that is in this particular category, this aisle is extremely codified. So when you go down the medication aisle or this type of aisle, it all kind of looks the same and bleeds the same. I'm not asking you to break those rules. I'm just asking you to be mindful of that so that and make it very easy for people to identify what product this is. And so Miss Hannah's good front of pack discipline. Took a look at the back of pack. It's just extremely busy. I think that there's some opportunity here to reinforce the flavor inspiration, to reinforce the brand personality and the ingredient quality. I see that you're organ-based. I see that this company has been around since early 2000s. I think that there's just opportunity to reinforce that heritage component on the back of pack if a lot of your people are return customers or they're just organ loyalists. And so, yeah. And then the last one is the Crumble Plus Melt cookie brand. The biggest thing I would look to is the food stylization. So I would recommend a new shoot for the front of pack where we're seeing the cookies kind of maybe filling a tray, something that's maybe in a kitchen, something that looks like how I might have it in my own kitchen experience and communicates a sense of quality and style. And so I would do a new shoot or maybe have it 3D rendered. We've done that where we'll just make, digital images. And so I would focus on food styling there. And let's go to the next slide as we kind of wrap up here. So just a little bit about us. Like I said, we are a branding and packaging company, but we offer a lot of services. So the way I like to say it is we are a turnkey design company. A lot of our clients are growth stage or smaller founders who just have us as a tool, as their tool belt to do all types of design elements for them and just be single point of contact, whether it comes to event materials, email materials, ad materials, shooting new campaign content, doing label updates, die line preparation for their vendors. We get it all done and we do it fast. And so our founders are like, okay, we can just cross that off the list because EO's got it. And we just rolled out our paid media, so we now run meta ad campaigns. And all these people who are doing this work were not creative agencies first, which we are. And if you know, algorithms, people have mastered them. Now, Facebook, Instagram, they want really good content. That's how we compete. And so we can bring that component to the ad world as well. So just wanted to plug us. That Skybarn image in the bottom middle was just recently featured in the Die Line, which is a big design publication. And we're very excited about that because we didn't get accepted last year. So this was good. This was good. Anyway, last slide here. Let's go ahead. And so this audit, like I said, we typically would dedicate like 5 to 7 slides for a single brand, and then we walk through those individual insights. And sometimes brands are changing their positioning efforts. Maybe they're going from a healthy more to a snack component, and all this is context for how the packaging should communicate. And maybe there's specific retailers, et cetera, if you would like to have your packaging audited, we're happy to do it. We'll do it complimentary. You can use that QR code and we'll just have a 30-minute conversation around what are your current brand goals, what are some of the challenges you're seeing, and timeline, et cetera. Because almost always this work is based on timeline. And then we can run the audit for you. And then we'll sit down together. I'll walk you through the insights. And that's complimentary. You're able to do with that as you please. A lot of the time we end up doing the edits for them because sometimes they just need it done to the die lines, and we move directly into that work. But either way, there it is for you if you would like to take advantage of that. And with the 5 minutes we have remaining, happy to answer any questions or be of service anyway.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John. Definitely appreciate you diving deep into these brands and sharing this. It was extremely helpful. So, if
Cool.
anyone in the audience, we got a couple minutes here. Any last questions? Otherwise, we can wrap things up as well. We'll send
Sweet.
out a follow-up email with the details and the recording from the day, along with the summary. But other than that, John, thanks so much for being on. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending, and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you all. See ya. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.